Mike Bohn joined now by Cory Sandhagen, who headlines UFC Nashville on Saturday against Rob Font. Cory, how are we doing, man? How's Nashville treating you so far?
Yeah, I'm all good. I usually get in as late as the UFC allows me to on Tuesday, so I haven't really done too much today other than a bunch of interviews. But maybe I'll check it out today or tomorrow or something. But I've been to Nashville before, and I really like the city, so I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. And man, like, this must be a gratifying feeling, right? I think your fifth main event and the UFC is putting its trust in you to like headline cards in different cities and be a ticket seller for them essentially.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really flattered about it. I think that the UFC sees my potential. I know that I fight real exciting. Like that's always like a really thing that I can kind of set apart from where I know a lot of other guys have to, think about like whether the UFC or the fans or whoever is going to like their fights. I don't ever really have to think about that because I know that I'm a really exciting and fun guy to watch.
Do you feel like the audience drives you a bit? I mean, I know we had the stretch there, empty arenas, pandemic, all that stuff. Does it bring a different feeling when you walk out and get the energy from that crowd?
Big time, big time. I didn't really realize how much I missed it until the last fight against Cheeto, and I was like, "This is so awesome!" From it's like it's amazing having people actually be there for the fight, and it makes it feel that much bigger. And I like big moments. I like I want to have like really memorable historic moments in this sport, and yeah, fighting in front of really awesome crowds as a main event is definitely something that I get to remember, and I get to put my little stamp in the history book, which is something that's important to us humans sometimes. And yeah, that's what I get to do.
So talk me through. Of course, you were supposed to fight Umar Nurmagomedov here. He fell out due to an injury. What was like the timeline in between that? Were you worried that they maybe wouldn't find anyone? How quickly were they managed to get Rob Fonten? Just walk me through the process that happened there.
So it was pretty immediate. I got a call from my agent at a time that he usually doesn't call me. It was like a little bit later in the afternoon, like kind of nighttime ish. And I was like, well, this isn't going to be good. And then he told me that Umar pulled out. I said, okay, well, who are we fighting instead? He said, potentially Rob Font. I said, I thought that Font was scheduled to fight Song. He explained to me that Song was maybe a little dinged up. And I was like, cool, Rob Font sounds great. Let's do Font, and as long as I get someone. And then, and then it took like a couple days for Rob to, like decide, I guess, kind of like he wanted to catch weight. I was like, if you were scheduled to fight 2 weeks later, I feel like the 5 pounds shouldn't make that big of a difference, but he really wanted to catch weight. So we took it out of catch weight, and yeah, that's kind of how that went. I'm excited about it. I really didn't want to train my ass off for 3 straight months and then not have a fight. So I'm in tip top shape. I'm in tip top skill level. I'm centered. I'm zen. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get this win, and then stamp my letter of approval to get my title shot after this.
Yeah, and I guess there's two sides to the weight thing, right? Like, it would be maybe nice to have him come down in that sense, but he has missed weight before, and you see these situations. Look what just happened with like Wonder Boy and Michelle Pereira, right? You have something goes awry on Friday, then it just turns into a whole crapshoot with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. 5 pounds, especially since it was on 2.5 weeks notice. Like I get it. Honestly, I would honestly like to give some, thankfulness to Rob for even taking the fight. He didn't have to, I'm happy that he did. I think that in the division, I get viewed as definitely one of the more challenging fights, definitely one of the more unorthodox styles to try to figure out. And he's willing to accept it on a 2.5 weeks notice. So, that's about as friendly and as nice as I'll be about talking about Rob Font this week. But I would like to applaud, and like he's the one that saved this card because there really wouldn't have been too many other guys that I think would have been reasonable asks for me to take this fight. So, I think that Rob Font deserves some credit for taking a really unorthodox fight in 2.5 weeks. And I'm really excited for the challenge, the switch up, which was a really big stylistic switch up for myself, too. Not only stylistically, but also from a narrative standpoint, where I went from underdog to being the favorite, which does a little bit of things to your mind sometimes and takes some settling into. So I had to do my fair share of, changes and things like that too. But yeah, I'm real excited that I still get to fight, and the catch weight is just, whatever. If that's what he wants to do, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah, it's got to be a win overall too, right? Like you go from I know people are excited for Umar and they think he's on the rise, but he was 11 and Rob's 7. So as you're trying to make that case for the title shot, having a higher ranked fighter can only increase it in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that after this fight, there, I mean, who else can you really say should get a title shot other than me? Like definitely Marab, but Marab's out right now and he won't fight Aljamain, so that kind of leaves a big question mark. And then Cejudo really got granted a pretty golden gift when he got an immediate title shot after had retiring and done all that. So they're not going to give him a rematch immediately, even though it was a close fight. Like he's going to have to fight a couple more times to fight for the belt again. So yeah, I fought real good against Song. I beat Cheeto by a pretty giant margin, and I go out and I beat another really tough, experienced guy in the division. And I think that I'm definitely the next guy to fight for the belt.
Yeah, I think you beat Cheeto in a large margin by in everyone's mind except for that one judge who scored it for him. Is that still like shocking to you? Especially, I'm sure you've watched that fight back a few times now.
I mean, I've been on the other side of some pretty bad decisions before in my past, so
Sure.
I don't really get. It doesn't surprise me. It kind of seems like we're at this weird point in MMA where they're really trying to score damage as being like the thing that is the criteria. That's number one. That on paper, that's always been the criteria, but now it seems like they're really enforcing damage over control. But because it is at this in between period, it seems like not all the judges are on board with that. Like that shift, or they don't know how much to shift. Like, is it an immediate shift? Because usually change happens over time. So it seems to me like that's where we are in MMA a little bit. So it is posing this like really challenging problem. But I do think that the judging in MMA is trending in a really good direction, with the exception of the judge in the Cheeto fight, who is just really bad at his job.
Yeah, fair enough. And when you look at the matchup with Rob, I mean, I think he's obviously got dangerous boxing. He can thump and stuff, but you must feel like you just have more weapons overall. Like he's not much of a kicker, he's not much of a grappler, and it seems like you do all that stuff a lot more than he does.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I'm a more modern, well-engineered weapon than Rob. I think that he's definitely good at what he does, but I think overall skill set in MMA, I'm better. I think that what Rob does really well, which is scores jab from the outside, put a ton of pressure. I have a lot of attributes that aren't going to make that easy for Rob to try to do, which me being the taller, just as long guy, and then me having really really good footwork makes like his advantages that he would have really not that significant going into the fight. So I do think that I would be very upset with myself if I let myself lose to Rob. I think as long as I go in, I know I've worked hard. As long as I go in, I'm prepared for whatever battle and war is going to happen in this 25 minutes. I stay focused and I fight smart like I do. I think that I go home with the win.
For sure. And you mentioned a couple times, you feel like the title will be next after this, but I know people are excited to see you fight Umar. Is that something you've moved on from? Maybe, down the line for a title or something like that. But do you feel like you agreed, you gave him the chance, and now you've moved on to kind of bigger and better things, and he's going to have to find someone else to fight if he wants to take that jump in the rankings?
That's kind of a tough one because I definitely think that me and Umar will fight each other in the future. Am I gonna fight Umar like the second he gets back just because we were scheduled to? Maybe, but maybe not. Like just because we were scheduled doesn't mean that things don't change. So I think Umar is definitely a phenomenal fighter. One day I will fight him, and I'm really excited for that challenge. And but I mean, it's unfortunate when you get hurt, but I'm looking at a title shot after this. I'm not looking back down.
Yeah, and your timing is pretty phenomenal here, right? Like you make your statement a couple weeks before. We have Aljamain and Sean O'Malley fighting in Boston, UFC 292. Give us your breakdown of that fight. Who do you think ends up winning it?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like O'Malley definitely knows how to hit someone real hard, so there's always that factor. But you can only put so many eggs into that basket when you're talking about fighting. Aljamain has been a proven hell of a competitor. Aljamain's style is unorthodox. It's not. It doesn't like appear aesthetically to be the most efficient thing in the world, but I think that Aljamain is an extremely high level competitor. He has a really good mind and he's really mentally solid. I don't know if I could say the same thing for O'Malley. I think that O'Malley is definitely technically really good, but in his fights, except for the Jan fight, you haven't, which was like a really questionable decision, anyways. You really haven't seen O'Malley be pushed. He looked real tired after those 3 rounds. Sterling's really used to doing the full 5 rounds, and so I mean, on paper you kind of got to give it to Sterling, but you can never really count out the guy that hits real hard. So
Do you feel like for you, O'Malley might be the better winner, like in terms of the result? Because Aljamain's talking about maybe going up to 45 if he does go there and he wins. I don't know if he would get a title shot right away and try to hold on to that belt so he could claim like double champ status type of thing. It seems like it would just be a lot cleaner for the division if Sean O'Malley ends up winning.
I think for myself, just viewing it from like a personal standpoint, I think that O'Malley is definitely like the fan chosen person. Like there's in my opinion not a more exciting matchup in the 135 division than me and O'Malley.
Yeah.
Uh like people want to see that fight happen. So from that perspective, I think that O'Malley, like he would be a preferred person. Also at the same time, I definitely don't want Aljamain Sterling to just like leave without losing and kind of make us all look like a bunch of bitches by just like peacing out. So I would really like to see another fight with me and Aljamain. I think that one, it would just feel good to get some revenge. I've been telling him I owe him a nap for a really long time, so I really want to, adhere to my word. But I also think that it would be a really inspiring story for me to come back from a really shitty loss that I had against Sterling, work my way back up all of these rankings, and then fight him again and win. And like a big piece of me being in the sport is trying to do my best to like be a good example and inspire other people. And I think that that would be a super inspiring story. So just from my personal standpoint, I would rather fight Aljamain just because I really think it would be one for me. But I think that it's a win-win because the fans want to watch me fight O'Malley too.
For sure. Are you going to go to Boston and try to see that one from cage side or something?
Yep, I'll be out there.
That's awesome, man. So I guess just before I let you go, final thing here. How do you feel about this fight with Rob? Do you feel it's going to be like a 5 rounder competitive fight, or do you feel like you can go and add another nice one to the highlight reel here?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I definitely think that there's a lot of paths to victory for me in this one, and there's not as many for Rob. I think that my skills are better. I know that Rob's a hard worker, and I know that he wants it. I want it just as bad, and I work just as hard as everyone else in this sport. Probably, maybe a little bit harder, but um, I think that I'm gonna go home with a win. I don't know how it's gonna happen. Sorry, I know that that's like a not the shiniest answer in the world, but I'm just real focused on myself. I'm real focused on doing what I need to do to win. I know that if I do those things, I definitely can see the fight not going past 25 minutes. I think that I can either sub or knock him out, or like really outpoint him, or I think that I just have so many paths to victory in this fight that it would surprise me if it went all 25 minutes.
Sure, I appreciate that. Not a boring answer at all. Always honest, always insightful, Cory. I always appreciate your time, man, and thank you for doing this. Hope the rest of the week in Nashville goes good, and best of luck on Saturday.
Right on. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.